And welcome to segment 6. Our guest this evening is Augie Deuser, the Republican candidate for the U.S. House out of the 1st Congressional District in Illinois, and a subject that is true to his heart and ours too, because we've all been in law enforcement. And Augie, Blue Lives Matter too, right?
Blue Lives Matter too, exactly. As we have talked about Don Lemon on CNN, and there was a sergeant on there that actually told him the way it is, that the Black Lives Movement is doing more harm than help to our society as a whole. If you really want to know what goes on in our country, go to FBI.gov and it'll tell you all the police officers that are shot and hurt on a daily basis, and why the media doesn't cover that. But every time there's an incident on regarding the police, they'll cover that and blow it out of proportion. And people like Jesse Jackson and Plager and Sharpton, they're making this an ordeal. It's not an ordeal, but they're making it an ordeal.
Well, it's being manufactured specifically to underwrite the agenda that they're trying to socialize the country. That's what they're doing. It's the old paradigm of the government creates a problem, you suffer with the problem, they create a solution to the problem, and now they own you to implement the solution. I mean, I wouldn't have said this 2 years ago.
No.
But it's very, very clear today that that's what's happening, because we're seeing it over and over and over again.
Well, and it's such an easy narrative for them of when they divide us, then they can, they can get up and make some speeches about, us versus them.
Sure. It's interesting, Augie, how many chiefs of police appointed by the mayor are coming forward.
Well, Ron threw his last superintendent under the bus.
Oh, man, did he ever.
And this Superintendent Johnson has said two things that he's got the nail hit right on the head. He said, parents need to be responsible for their children, and children need to be responsible for their behavior. He also just said, when he went out to have a press conference, the people were so ignorant and he couldn't speak. And they interviewed him on the way back inside, and he said that it's a split decision when you're a policeman. You have a split decision to make what you're going to do and react. And like my father always said, you don't know what you're going to do until you're in that position.
There's a great clip from Any Given Sunday, I think is the name of the movie, but Al Pacino.
Al Pacino, yeah.
Yeah, have you seen that clip? It's on the internet. About he's talking about cops. He's talking to cops at a memorial service for some cops that were killed in the movie, and he's talking about just being the sheepdog. You do this. It's not that you want to do this; it's you have to do this. It's who you are. But on the clip that's on YouTube, they're showing one video clip after another, just in succession. Many clips of cops getting shot, run over by cars. It's just, and all the while in the background, you hear Al Pacino going, "We go out every day. We do this because this is what we have to do." And it really is different. You have to be different to be a cop. You have to be different.
Well, if you're not different when you start,
you will be.
You're going to be different after you're on the job, and you deal with all the difficulty every day. People don't realize, unless they've been on the job or they had someone in their family, every time you're in a situation, you're generally dealing with a negative that you have to turn around into a positive.
Yep.
And we're talking about the all lives matter. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, mixed, whatever you are. I'm going to read you a couple paragraphs from the Wall Street Journal. Police officers of all races are also disproportionately endangered by black assailants. Over the past decade, according to FBI data, 40% of cop killers have been black. Officers are killed by blacks at a rate 2.5 times higher than the rate at which blacks are killed by police. Some may find evidence of police bias in the fact that blacks make up 26% of police shooting victims, compared with their 13% representation in the national population. But as residents of poor black neighborhoods know too well, violent crimes are disproportionately committed by blacks. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, blacks were charged with 62% of all robberies, 57% of murders, 45% of assaults in the 75 largest U.S. counties in 2009, though they make up roughly 50% of the population. The Black Lives Matter movement has been stunningly successful in changing the subject from the realities of violent crime. The world knows the name of Michael Brown, but not Tyshawn Lee, a 9-year-old black child lured into an alley and killed by gang members in Chicago last fall. Tyshawn was one of dozens of black children gunned down in America last year. The Baltimore Sun reported on January 1st, blood was shed in Baltimore at an unprecedented pace in 2015, with mostly young black men shot to death in a near daily crush of violence. When I was a teacher, 2 of my students got killed. They were gangster disciples. That was 1991. Last year, I had another young man that I taught 2 years ago that was shot and killed. I mean, this has to stop, and people have to be responsible. You have to be responsible for your children and make sure you're there to help them grow up. You know, stop blaming the police.
Well, and the problem, I think, with this is simply that you can't give people everything for free. They have no skin in the game. If you never have to earn anything, you have no sense of pride of ownership, and all you want is more. They somehow think that you should be able to not lift a finger to work, and you should be rich. That's the typical liberal agenda that's in
right.
that.
Well, in our country, there's far more white people on welfare than there are
Absolutely.
any other race. And we live in a sense of entitlement. And that's basically what the Democratic Party has created. Entitlement instead of learning how to go out, get a job, and work, and be a positive contributor to society.
And see, the irony of that exact statement, the irony of that is that the Democrats have sold non-white people in general, Hispanics, everybody, that the Republicans are against you. And only we can save you by giving you free stuff. And the humor of that is, the irony of that is, that all Republicans ever say, because you look at us, we have friends of all kinds. We have black friends, we have Hispanic, we have all kinds of people. They're just like us. There's no difference. The irony lies in the fact that Republicans are guilty of saying, you know what? Get an education, get a job, come live with us. That's all. We're not asking anybody to do anything any different. Just be responsible. That's the horror story of being a Republican.
The other thing, and I'm not exactly sure when it ended. It might have been, maybe the generation after me, the 70s kids, maybe the 80s kids. But at some point, it seems that parents stopped teaching their kids that they had to respect authority figures.
Right.
When I was growing up, and I know when you guys were growing up even more so, we were taught you respect your teachers, you respect police officers, you respect authority figures. And, don't give them any lip. Well, at some point, parents apparently stopped teaching their children that they had to respect authority figures. And so when a police officer tells you to turn around and put your hands behind your back, these kids don't think they have to do it.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is you do, okay? That's the law. Otherwise, it's resisting arrest. It's not following orders of a police officer. And that is against the law.
Actually, people don't understand that, and that is true. Even though you have done nothing wrong, you absolutely know that. It doesn't matter.
That is not the point.
That's not. It isn't. If a police officer tells you to do something, you have to do it. Now you can turn around and sue them for under federal law. You can sue him for discrimination or whatever.
Right.
But when he says jump, the only question is how high on the way up.
Right.
And you know what? I've known in the county I was in, there's over 300 road deputies. I've never known a guy or a woman who wore a uniform that said, let's go get that black guy, or let's go rouse somebody.
No.
They're not going to risk their job over that kind of stuff. Sure, there's some nutballs out there in the world, but the vast majority of people, they don't do that. You look at each one of these people that you're talking about, you look at them, and I said this last week.
Yeah.
You notice how none of the people who've gotten shot were like lawyers or doctors or even school bus drivers or teachers. Every one of them just about had a rap sheet. Every one of them. And so they're resisting arrest. They have done something wrong. The cop has tried to stop them. They resisted arrest, and they got shot.
And it's he mentioned Michael Brown earlier, and one of my favorite videos is the high school girl in the bikini at the pool party.
Right, the pool
and
party.
the police officer is trying to arrest her, and she's resisting arrest. And when that hit the Facebook and the internet, everybody's losing their minds. Oh my gosh, look at this police officer harassing this girl. No, she's resisting arrest.
Right.
She was causing a problem. Somebody called the cops. He came there to do his job, and she's resisting arrest.
And at the same time, they were trying to grab the policeman's gun.
Yeah.
While he was holding on to her, waiting for backup. They actually tried to get his gun away from him. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'm glad I'm not on the job today.
Yeah.
I really am, because my heart goes out to these guys.
You know, Augie, there was a number of us at the last ISRA meeting who had been law enforcement, and we were all just talking about this sort of thing, and we all kind of looked at each other and said, you know what? I'm glad I don't do it anymore.
Yeah. Pretty much to a person, everybody who's not in it anymore says, I wouldn't sign up today.
Yeah. I remember back in and I'm sure you do too, back in the 60s and 70s, there was a big war movement going on, and cops were pigs, and they'd throw stones at them and stuff like that.
I used to wear a pig tie clip, by the way.
There you go. And there was an animosity, but they didn't lay traps for cops.
Right.
They didn't stalk them, shoot them in the back of the head while they're pumping gas. It was not a good time, but it pales in comparison to what's happening today.
Listen, I got stopped about a year ago on 103rd and Western. I go to a golf shop over there, Clee's Golf Shop. The copper stops me. He's a white guy. I'm a white guy. He runs my plate, and it comes back.
You come up.
I'm a CNC guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says to me, I need your license and I need your insurance. I said, you need my license and insurance? He says, yeah. I said, well, it's in the glove box. Can I get it? He says, yeah, go ahead. In the meantime, he unbuckles his gun.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, he don't care what color I am.
That's right.
Listen, he doesn't know if I'm going to go in there in the glove box or under the seat and grab a gun and start shooting him.
He wants to be able to go home.
He's doing his job.
He wants to be able to go home.
That's all. He's doing his job.
I agree.
That's it. You know, and there are people that profile people, but you know what? It's like any other job. 9 out of 10 of the policemen you run into, they're good people, and they just want to go home to their families.
But profiling. This is a bugaboo of mine, profiling. Oh, it's a terrible thing. It's racism. Well, wait a minute. If a kid's wearing a baseball cap sideways, and he's got a teardrop under his eye tattooed, and he has gang signs, and he's in a car going up and down, and he's got all the gang symbols and signs and stuff, yes, I'm going to profile him. Of course I am.
Yeah.
He's the guy that causes trouble. They advertise it, Augie. They're advertising that they're bad guys. They're proud of it.
Well, you know, it's interesting you said it, because the Martin kid that was shot was down in Florida, the security guard, I think he just got in trouble the other day for something else. So, you know, his problems are following him all over. But, you know, I found it interesting that the news media kept putting a picture of him when he was in fifth grade.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was actually 6'2" with tattoos and wearing a hoodie. And he had priors.
Sure.
I mean, he had priors. So evidently the security guard was doing his job and saw that, hey, this kid's out late. You know, he asked him what he was doing, and then they ended up having a confrontation. You know, I say this, and I taught this to my students. Listen, there's always a positive way to deal with the situation. And if you're going to be a hard ass and you're going to go against what the policeman asks you to do, you're leaving him no alternative, none whatsoever. My father always taught me, look, if you back someone into a corner, guess what's going to happen? Yeah. They're going to fight. They're going to come out after you.
Of course they are.
It's common sense. What happened to common sense?
In almost 20 years of working part-time as a deputy, 2 different states, I can't ever think of a single time when any deputy laid hands on another person who wasn't giving him a hard time. You don't just walk up to somebody. If you're agreeing, if you're saying, sir, I want to see your hands, show me your hands, and they take their hands out of their pocket, that's all I want.
Yeah.
You know? I just want to go home at the end of the day.
Right.
That's all. It's always this belligerent, I don't have to do that stuff. Well, the hell you don't.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I agree with you. I've never saw a cop get into anything, except for maybe one time, but still, he was provoked. You know, guy ran, and you know, we know what that's gonna end up like.
I used to have a T-shirt that said, "If you run away, you will only go to jail tired."
Right.
Yeah.
And that's basically what happened. But yeah, I mean, cops don't want to get into anything messy any more than anyone else does.
Attitude is more important than anything else. I've said this 100 times. When a cop pulls you over on a traffic stop, he pretty much knows what he's going to do. He's, you know, well, he wasn't going that fast. I'm going to write a warning ticket. Basically, it's yours to lose. Mm-hmm. The couple of times that we've been pulled over, I have and then you have, totally professional.
Oh, they were totally fine.
They were completely professional.
And that was since we've had concealed carry.
Right.
They knew we had guns, and they were totally chill.
Right. Now, if I had have said, "Pig, I'm going to my glove compartment," I'd have probably gotten my ass shot.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care what color somebody is. I really don't. I don't care. It never bothered me.
Yeah. I mean, my primary field training officer taught me profiling, but it wasn't racial profiling. It was car profiling.
Well, yeah, we used to call them beaters. What'd you call them?
Shitboxes.
Shitbox, right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My
We call them
my
beaters.
FTO said you always look for a shitbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. And tell me if I'm wrong about this. You can walk up to somebody in a car or anywhere, and in about 5 seconds, you know if you got a problem. You know, it's the attitudes that I know that somebody who seems perfectly normal can turn on a dime, and you find yourself going from everything's fine to I'm over my head.
Well, and we've met some people too where you're like, wow, that person looks really grumpy, and then after a while you realize that's just their face.
Yeah, it's just their face.
Right. They're mean mugging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of the time,
Yeah.
within 5 or 10 seconds of talking to somebody, you immediately know if this is going to go well.
Well,
or
look,
not.
I call it spider sense. You know, when you're a policeman, you know, you have to have that to be a good policeman. You know,
to survive.
whether that's innate or you learn it. I mean, my father had it. He taught it to me. And if you don't know, then you need to get another profession. Because if you can't tell when you're wrong. But you know what? I try to kill people with kindness. And that aggravates them more than, you know, if you try to be the hard ass. Because I try to be nice to people, but sometimes niceness is taken as a weakness.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And sometimes then you have to take a hard line. But, you know, you try as many different ways as you can. But it's like I said, I always taught my students, there's a better way to deal with people. Be positive. Don't get defensive. You know, try to listen and try to hear what the other person is saying. You know, don't just hear what you want to hear. Listen to what they're saying and get it.
When I was in Ohio, when I first started doing this, the guy who was training me said something that I've never forgotten, and that was, be respectful to everyone, know how you're going to kill them.
Yeah.
The shocking thing is it can be perfectly normal, and boom, just once, you let your guard down for a second, and all of a sudden, that's it. So, I don't know, Augie, I don't know that there's going to be a short-term solution to any of this, to be perfectly honest. They've so divided this country.
No, I think there's never going to be a short-term solution, but I think people need to wake up and smell the coffee when it comes to people like Hillary. I mean, Hillary does not know the truth. It's just despicable.
I think she knows the truth.
Well,
I think she doesn't care about the truth.
She's a liar. Then I mean,
Yeah.
as they have portrayed her, and I have seen signs out that says Hillary for president.
Yeah.
On the lawns now. That's
I can
the
live with
newest
that.
thing.
I can live with
But
that.
the Democrats will tell you anything just to be elected.
I can't remember what somebody famous said, if you want to tick off a conservative, lie to him. If you want to tick off a liberal, tell him the truth.
Yeah.
All right. It's that's another segment 6 that we have completed. Pithy words of wisdom, and our guest has been Augie Deuser, who's a Republican candidate out of the 1st Congressional District. Augie, best of luck in the election.
Vote Republican.
Vote Republican.
Don't forget to get Donald Trump, too.
That's
Right.
right.
Could you imagine if I go to Congress and I get to have lunch with Donald Trump? Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something.
Call me up. I'll go with you.
You're there.
We'll be back next week.